This little guy is one of our rescues. He was in a bad situation, and a lady got him out of the situation, but she knew she couldn't keep him. But she did get him nice and fattened up. And you can see the deformity above the hind legs. There's a bump that shouldn't be there. And then he's also got a twist right around here in his back. And a bit of issues right here with the rib. But so far everything's looking healed. And he's eating really well and adapted really fast. He was just pigging out on dubias. There are sometimes situations where they're born with the deformities, but because of the condition that he was rescued from, there's a good chance that it is MBD and not a natural birth defect. One thing when housing these guys is that they do require a decent basking site, and so you have to make sure you have a large enough enclosure to get that kind of gradient. We measure it at between 120 and 130 surface temp, and we use these infrared thermometers that measure your surface temp. You can go around the whole cage. And then you get the surface temp with this as 120 to 130. And the cool end is room temperature. This guy was eating really well for us already because he had already been bulked up a lot by the lady that rescued him originally. We feed our monitors the largest variety possible. And we try to make sure there's enough of the lean foods because monitors in captivity do have a tendency for obesity. We will catch whole fish and cut off the sharpest fins for it and feed them to the larger monitors. And then we'll catch the minnows and stuff for the smaller ones. And they'll eat the turkey and egg and insects, which it can be harder to feed a large one insects because of the amount they do eat. This little guy was already eating well, so we're not going to have any problem with that. With the farmed imports and stuff that we do get in, sometimes they don't take to eating right away, and we will use a high quality canned cat food. I've never had a monitor that was able to resist it. We don't really use it as much of the diet once they're acclimated and eating well, but it is something to get them eating because it doesn't matter how good the nutrition is if you can't get it into them. And then we'll start to you can add in other stuff into it and things, but usually once they get rehydrated, because dehydration's a big problem with the animals coming into the country. So once you get them rehydrated and starting to eat, usually switch to the other food items pretty easily. And it's not something we would recommend like as a large amount of the diets or long term. It's more of just a trick to get them eating. And like this little guy doesn't have a problem, and he was picking out on the roaches, and so we don't really have too much issues. We're hoping that he'll get to become one of our ambassadors with our educational animals. He's extremely calm, extremely docile. I've met some that do have attitude problems, but generally they do calm down. Most Savannah Monitors end up pretty calm, But you do get that occasional one that does have an attitude. But you can see how chilly he is. You can see his nice little belly from the dubias. And we do feed a lot of wild caught fish and stuff. But we also do fecals once a year, which is extremely important. And that's if you're using any food animal that has not been frozen for a while does carry the risk of parasites. And we do the fecal once a year to and eliminate what we can. But there are arguments and stuff about frozen foods reducing nutrition and this and that. So there are pros and cons to every food type, and I know a lot of people will use um, live rodents and stuff. I mean, any food source does carry the potential of parasites, and even if some of the herbivores can get them from plant material, so that's one thing to be aware of.